title. And he's got to go to Middlesbrough and get something. And I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
Yes, everyone, welcome to another edition of The Warm Down. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Simon Stone from the BBC. Can we just say, one of the most respected journalists that talks about Manchester United. Like you said earlier, there is a high bar, and you are above that bar. Reddit absolutely loved him, so welcome. Thanks for coming on, mate.
No worries. How
are you doing?
Good, I'm good. All calmed down a little bit. Interesting Champions League final on Saturday.
Don't want to talk about it. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Interesting Europa League final. It's just building up now to the start of the silly season with all the transfer rumours and speculation and all this kind of stuff. And then we're back into it before
just
we know
on
it.
The Champions League, that was a weird build-up. It must have been really bizarre. Obviously, we've seen when United have won it, we've gone, finished the league and into the Champions League final, where they finished the league and then had 3 weeks, essentially.
Yeah,
so that must have been killer, mental for the players.
Well, I mean, the problem, I think the English League was wrong, really, because everybody's saying, well, why did UEFA organise a Champions League final for when they did? Well, the UEFA organised a Champions League final, and the English League would fall in line with that. So why everything wasn't pushed back? So the FA Cup final was a week before, and then the week before that was the end of the season. I don't know. I don't think it did either side any favours. Does that explain why it was such an atrocious game?
It was a terrible game.
It was a poor
But,
game.
I mean, fair play to the Scousers. If you win it, you're not arsed, are you? And that is all I'm going to say on the subject. Right, United had a mad season, and I think it arguably started with the Sevilla game, but I think it really, if we're thinking about it, it really came obvious in pre-season with some of the stuff Jose was saying.
Yeah, the interesting thing was, and I've done many pre-seasons with United, and I always found them quite enjoyable, and everybody's a bit more relaxed, and the players are kind of looking forward in general terms to what's coming ahead, and there's a blank sheet of paper there. And the most amazing thing was that United had finished the season second, but Jose had grumbled a bit towards the end of the season, and there was a feeling that he wasn't happy with the squad, and he wanted more money for the players, and they got Fred Dalot, but he wasn't going to play, so so they went into
Fred Dalot Grant wasn't making 19 points.
But so they went into the actual pre-season with a few question marks hanging over them. And usually United, you speak to people at United and they say, look, is there any possibility, the first press conference, that we could lift the mood a bit? And we were in UCLA. The press conference had been called for 9 o'clock, and I remember it because it was very fortunate for me that it was at that time, because I'd got an interview booked with Zlatan at the lunchtime, so if it had been at lunchtime I wouldn't have been able to go. And so we go into this room at UCLA, and the journalists are all there, and we're all a little bit jet lagged because we've just arrived. And Jose walks in, and it wasn't the first question. The first question was, how are things? Are you looking forward to pre-season? And he said, no, I don't know why I'm here. I haven't got my players. And he just reeled off this kind of list of why things were terrible. And basically said he'd prefer to be back at home in Manchester. Couldn't understand why the trip had been sorted out in the first place. And then the people that you'd been speaking to at the club who were saying, can you lift the mood? You go back to them and you say, oh, that's got to come from the manager. And
he had the opportunity as well.
Yeah, exactly.
He could have gone, well done, lads.
We call it an open door. It's a half volley. The opportunity's there. Yeah, we're looking forward to the season. We want to build on second. We're going to...
I've got some of the best young players in the world that you're going to see on this tour, like Mason and Angel, given an opportunity. That was such a positive.
Yeah.
And he didn't take the swing at having it.
So... And then the games weren't particularly great, and then they went into the Liverpool game, got battered by Liverpool, and then he came out with this, explosive press conference, and then he had a go at Ed in the in the tunnel away from the media, kind of to the side of the mix zone. And almost from that, it was like, this is all going to unravel. At some point...
It unravels quick when Jose decides it's going to
Well, actually, I thought it unravelled fairly slowly for Jose, because we're talking about the end of July, and it was December before he went.
Sevilla back in March, whenever it was.
Yeah, that was terrible, wasn't it? But it felt like a slow torture for Man United. It just felt, from that kind of week and a half, sitting there for the first time to that Liverpool game, we're in July, and you just thought, well, this situation can't sustain itself. It just cannot. It cannot go on like this.
I released the video in December when he was sacked. I actually released it the day before he was sacked. I recorded it in October though. And that's no word of a lie. I actually recorded it in October, expecting him to go.
Yeah, well, but it was. If you remember, there was a massive story that it was in the Mirror that he was before the Newcastle game. He was going to leave, whatever, and that didn't come to pass. But it wasn't.
Yeah, that was around that sort of time. I think, yeah. And then obviously it did eventually go, and a lot of people post the unravelling that we sort of saw with Ole have gone, Jose was right. Well, he was right, but he was also to blame as well. The things he was saying weren't untrue. This squad isn't good enough. This squad needs investment. The players he wanted, but he's also got to shoulder a hell of a lot of the blame for not utilising what he had, or not at least changing the mood, because the mood was his fault, I think.
Well, he definitely contributed to that. There's no doubt about that. I go back to the centre-half situation. I think the number of people who follow Man United, who are watching this, read your stuff, read my stuff, read anybody's stuff, they think Manchester United are deficient at centre-half and need at least one good, top-quality centre-half.
If you don't, can you comment, please? If you're sitting there going, I keep seeing people saying that, what are you on about?
Yeah, I think
please comment,
great.
We'll send help.
So, when Mourinho went to Woodward in the last week and a half of the transfer window and said, I've got to have a centre-half, he was right. But if you're Man United, if you're Ed Woodward, you're pulling the purse strings there, or you're in operation, you're deciding, the way that the club goes. So they would have liked someone like Varane, probably, right? It would cost 90 million quid, but they couldn't get him. So then you go into tier 2 in terms of targets, and we knew all the names. So Boateng, Yerry Mina, who went off to Everton in the end.
Alderweireld was touted a lot as well.
Yeah, but I don't think that was ever going to happen, actually. So someone like Maguire. So that's the level that you're looking at. And for each of those players, you could come up with a reason why you wouldn't want them. But you need a centre-half. But faced with the level of player that we were talking about, then you go back to, well, hang on a minute. When Jose came in, he brought Eric Bailly in. He's largely unproven. I think he'd only played about 40 games in senior football before he came to England. But nevertheless, when he came initially, he looked a decent player. Then he's disappeared. So he's one of the centre-halves you've got who's kind of like been slowly eased out. I
think something's happened with him behind the scenes. I don't know that, but I think that.
But then, the following summer, there's Lindelof comes in. Well, as it turned out, he probably had a better season than most of us thought. But certainly until that Juventus home game, I didn't see a Man United player in Victor Lindelof. But going back to the point, you've spent... Mourinho's been there 2 summers already. He's bought a centre-half for £30 million in each of those 2 summers, right? So you're not getting Varane. What you're getting instead, you're either getting an injury-plagued Jerome Boateng, you're getting a Yerry Mina who's about a £30 million player, and a Maguire who would cost substantially more than £30 million, but in the market from the previous 2 summers, he was about a £30 million player, right? So you're going to get, in the club's eyes, you're going for another centre-half who was about as good as Victor Lindelof and Eric Bailly, neither of whom...
are actually good enough.
Yeah, that's right. So what is the point in getting another of those players when you've got 5 of them already? So I can see... That is a kind of microcosm there. So he's right.
Whether you agree or not,
you need another centre-half, but you can see the club's logic. Well, why should we spend any more money on a centre-half? Bearing in mind, you cannot get the players that you want.
But that doesn't mean don't sign a right-back, though. That's the issue.
But they did sign a right-back.
All right, yeah, they kind of did, yeah. But was he ever meant to be first choice? I didn't think...
Well, no, probably not, but I thought Young's form tailed off. And the one thing I would say about Ashley Young, so the last game that I saw of the season was Huddersfield away, because I was at Anfield on the final day, because that's where it was happening. That Huddersfield game, I watched that game, and I honestly thought the only 2 players involved here today that I would genuinely think, if you were Manchester United, you would be desperate to keep, would be Scott McTominay and Ashley Young, because they are the only 2 players on this pitch representing Manchester United who I could guarantee will go out there and give their absolute best for Manchester United. Now, that is not a great reason, I admit, for keeping players. But I think it's a damning indictment on the state of the squad that you could reach that conclusion. So, wind back 12 months, I think you brought in a young right back. You think probably in a year and a half's time, he can shadow Young, and then he'll be okay to come in. But he had injuries. So, I think just in terms of right back, I think United are a bit the victim of circumstance. I think
actually, looking back, you probably got a really valid point there, that they probably did expect Delode to have a higher output. He was very good with the ball at his feet, but he was really suspect defensively. And I think the Derby game highlighted that straight off the bat. I think both of their crosses came from that side.
But we live in an era where almost the fullbacks are the most important players you got.
Huge, yeah.
So, you want fullbacks who can attack and properly attack, which is why you've ended up with a situation where Valencia first and then Young are attacking players who've come back to play in defence, because their attribute is going forward, but they also need to be able to defend. Now, I always liken it to the era of Evra, and he at the time was competing with Ashley Cole for the best left back in the Premier League
world.
and I think there are not many players like that.
Evra's weakness was his defending, though. He wasn't.
Yeah, but Cole
certainly good.
Cole was a better defender. Not as good at attacking, unlikely to score as many goals. But as a complete, this is not about Ashley Cole and Patrice Evra. I'm merely pointing out that is the standard of the player that you want. And if either of those 2 players were at their peak now and on the market, they would be 80, 90 million pounds.
Look at Rafa. What a mistake it was letting Rafael go.
Well, yeah.
Because he would be owning that position right now.
Absolutely,
owning it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people, you speak to a lot of people at Manchester United, and they still are fairly incredulous that was allowed to happen, but it happened and you have to move on.
Going forward, I thought what happened with Ole, if it had been the other way around, would have probably ended the mood of the season quite highly. If we'd have started off really badly and then it have improved it. I actually think we're going to start quite well this year. I think that a lot of the back end of the season was down to injuries. I think he eased off on that pressing style a little bit, which...
I think they got They were knackered.
Yeah, and that. And I hope that pre-season we can fix that. I just don't know how much endurance you can put into players in 4 or 5 weeks when you've got half the world to go and travel. It doesn't seem the most sensible thing to do to me.
Well, I definitely think...
It took Klopp a couple of years, didn't it? To get
but it was always, you can argue with Pochettino as well. It does take time, but you have to have a structure. And I think I'm not dismissing, what happened in the final few weeks of the season at all. I think that defeat, those 2 defeats just before the international break, against Arsenal, which was a crucial league game.
Unfortunate as well.
And the Wolves game in the FA Cup. It sucked a lot of life out of the season because it put Man United back outside the top 4, and also it took away the chance of winning a trophy. And I honestly think that Solskjaer, Phelan, Carrick, McKenna, they'd worked the players so hard in not so much over Christmas because there's so many games, but there was that little period in January where you're playing 1 game a week. They went away to the Middle East. Was it Qatar or was it
Dubai?
Dubai, yeah, for a training camp. And I think they put a lot of work into them, and I think it just after the March international break, when the results weren't quite going right, when games weren't going United's way like they did against Tottenham, so little things just change, and I think it sucked the life out, and suddenly the legs feel heavy and it's all tired. But I don't think I don't think United will be like that, and we'll learn a lot from this pre-season, because I think we'll learn which players are committed enough to what is happening at this football club to put the effort in pre-season that will give them the stamina and the energy to be able to play the modern way. And that will tell us a lot. But also, it may highlight some potential weaknesses, because to play that way, you're pressing high, everybody's going together, but it also puts an extra onus on the people at the back, because the opposition tend to do that to you as well. So when Tottenham or Liverpool are going to play United, and to an extent City, going to press you, the ball's got to get moved around quite a lot within, I'd call it a back 3, so your 2 centre-halves and your goalkeeper. Yeah. Right, so United don't have ball-playing centre-halves. They don't have people who...
I'd put Lindelof in that category.
But I don't see him as a Laporte or
he's not
a Van Dijk. But that is what you've got to do. Yeah. But also the goalkeeper. And so I was watching the game on Saturday night, and it was amazing. It's quite instructive, because my wife, who knows a lot about football, my 2 sons, who watch a lot of football, play football. The amount of times that the ball went back to Lloris, and they're going, no, don't go back there. Lloris is being pressed, and Lloris just knocks it out, never flustered, knocks it out. That is the way of the modern game. De Gea can't do that. De Gea saves shots. He is brilliant at saving shots. If that's a goalkeeper's job, he is the number 1 goalkeeper in the world. He can't pass the ball around.
He was decent at distribution, but he's really regressed to the point where it's like...
But when you look at... When you see Lloris to an extent, and Lloris, there's a mistake in Lloris. He makes mistakes. He's made loads this season in a way that De Gea generally doesn't. De Gea's made some this year. But then you see someone like Alisson or Ederson, or I watched Ter Stegen when he was playing for Barcelona. These guys can take the ball in their penalty area under no pressure and not lob these 70-yard balls to an area. They can knock 40-yard balls to the wing to your full back or your wing back or your drop deep wing,
De Gea.
and they can just bring the ball down and you're away.
He puts those long balls up to people like Marcus, who can't hit it. He puts them up to Lukaku, who can't hold it up. If we had that player to go to, and that's possibly why Fellaini was so loved by Mourinho, it's because he was an outlet for that sort of ball.
Yeah.
But it isn't how you want to see us play.
But that's different though. That's different. The ball comes back, you're hitting it into an area, 5-10 yards into your opponent's half, and you're challenging for the ball, and then you're winning down second balls. Yeah. That is different to getting the ball played back to you and knocking it over to the touchline.
Yeah, not flapping.
Yeah, 40 yards away to a guy who's controlling the ball and then he's going forward.
Can you imagine how loved Bartes would have been in this era?
Well, but that is the way we're going, isn't it? That is the way we're going. So Bartes, when he was here, he was, he wasn't Schmeichel. He didn't have the imposing presence of Schmeichel, did he?
No, but pulling out Cruyff turns in his box.
No,
and
that's
stuff
right.
like that.
But that is the way. That is the way we're going. That is the way our game's going, as well as the continental game. So Casillas, I always say this about PK. PK, a brilliant footballer. Could he have played in the Premier League? I'm not sure he could, because he'd have been buffeted around in the era that he was playing. Bearing in mind he's still playing, but when he was at Man United, could Casillas have made the career that he had playing in goal for a team in England in the era that he played? And I'm not sure you could, because I think there was an acceptance that you're going to be challenged in the air, and he wasn't big enough. But De Gea is more like that. So he's got away with it. Goalkeeper's not coming to punch. Lloris didn't come to punch the other night. I thought he put his team under a lot of pressure by not coming to punch. But there is a difference between that goalkeeper who can, under pressure with strikers pressing you, can move it out, move it the other way, knock that ball, and just someone who goes woof, and then you challenge for it, and then you challenge for the second ball.
I think if we want to play out from the back, going. Yeah, and it looks like, especially if you look at some of the stuff Ole did at Mulder, he does like to play out from the goalkeeper at the back, and I think that's been an issue for him. And then he likes to move it up through the thirds, and I don't think we've necessarily had the personnel to do that. We can't play out from defence. The midfield's got to come back deep. That limits to where we're going, and everyone has to fall in line then. And I think if we look into who we bring in, like I mentioned earlier, you did an article looking at saying Ole wants to go with the youth. That's both in terms of signings and in terms of what's at the club. Do you think there's anyone in particular, well, aside from Aaron Wan-Bissaka's heavily linked, we're looking at De Ligt heavily linked, is that what we're looking at potentially? Going with a very young team that might be able to grow together in Ole's particular style? That you don't need to train out of them?
But I think when you're mentioning names there, right? Wan-Bissaka, fantastic player, great potential. De Ligt, fantastic player, great potential, good now. He's a leader, right? So then other players that have been linked, like Jadon Sancho. Personally, I think he's potentially really good. Is he going to be as good as Hudson-Odoi? Hudson-Odoi's injured at the moment. I've got my doubts about that. There's been a lad on loan at Wigan all season, Reece James, 18 years old. He won their Player of the Year. I saw him play against Leeds United.
Raving about it.
Yeah, he played against Leeds United, away from home. Leeds United were top of the table. Good Friday. Wigan had a man sent off. He led that team. They had a man sent off. They were a man down. They were a goal down. A man sent off, goal down. He led that team, and they won the game. It was the most incredible game. That lad is a player. All these young players have got fantastic ability. There's quite a lot of them about. United signed a 16-year-old recently, haven't they? And I've got a colleague at work. He goes on and on about João Felix, best since Ronaldo. It's not about that. It's about the structure of the team. So you have to have. You bring in Cristiano Ronaldo in 2003. You bring in Wayne Rooney in 2004. They're great players. But they won't be great players unless you've got solid defence, a midfield that works, attacking outlets, someone who'll score goals. You've got to have all of these things. Yeah, of course. So you've got to have all of these things. And I think, so you open up your war chest, you cross your fingers, you say to Crystal Palace, there's £100 million, can we have Wan-Bissaka? Crystal Palace say yes. You say to Ajax,
I hope so.
can we, £150 million we'll have Delight. Yeah, brilliant. João Felix, Sancho, well, all of these players, we'll get them all. Fantastic talent. But that's no guarantee that it's going to work. And that, they've got fantastic talent now. Pogba is a fantastically talented player. Whatever people think about him, he's a fantastically talented player. Rashford is talented. Lingard is talented. Lukaku is talented. You have to, Martial, you have to have a way of playing. Because you've seen over the last, 3 seasons, from Pogba, you see glimpses. But you also know now that you put him at a normal number 6 position where you've got to defend and you've got to track back, and he's a liability. So you have to find a way of putting him into the team, or a team structure that will allow you to play. Now, is that, 4 at the back, 2 holders, Pogba going wherever he wants, 2 wide men and a forward, or is that wing backs? But somehow you have to find a way of doing that. I tend to think if you play 3 at the back with wing backs, that's 5, 2 holding midfield players, 7, your goalkeeper 8, Pogba 9, 2 forwards, 10 and 11. I kind of think that's the way that it works. But you're deficient in other areas, and you also, if you're playing 2 centre forwards or 2 strikers, you're not playing Lukaku. He's not quick enough. He can't hold the ball up. So you paid 90 million quid for Pogba and 75 million for Lukaku, but they're not really any good together. And then where does Sanchez fit into that? And where does So that's that. You've got to have a structure.
We're a horse designed by committee, aren't we?
Well, but you have to have a structure, and if you don't have a structure, you can have as many good players as you want, and it won't work.
The Scousers have proved this recently with the assembly of the team that they've put. They've got a couple of key players in it, but the system comes first, and the players are fit into the system, or they're gone.
Yeah, well, but so if we wind back with Liverpool, and it was always my view. I mean, my personal opinion was that Klopp was the right man to come into United post-Ferguson. People that you speak to at United say they couldn't get him out of Dortmund. Man United can't get the Dortmund manager. I kind of struggle with that myself. But anyway, take them at face value. That's what they say. But they received a bid from Barcelona for Coutinho. At the time, the general feeling was this would be a disaster for Liverpool to let Coutinho go. He was one of their 4-star men. It was a disaster. But within their kind of planning, someone has said, well, actually, if we believe that if he goes, we've got the players here that can pick up the slack. It also would bring in whatever it was, £100 million. That would allow us to fill the gaps in the team that we know exist, and everybody knew existed, at goalkeeper and at centre-half. So it meant that the previous, January, they went out and spent a load on Van Dijk. The goalkeeper's still deficient, still got to the European Cup final, but you could already see that Van Dijk's making a difference. And then in the summer, you were able to go out and get the goalkeeper that you want. Now, you've got to get the right goalkeeper. But Liverpool, over a period of 2 years when Klopp was there, have got themselves turned round to an extent of, we know where we're going, we know how this jigsaw fits together, we're just missing a couple of the pieces here. And then the next 2 years were spent working out how you were going to get these two pieces of the jigsaw.
That's my issue with United, is that
But
I don't think we know what the jigsaw looks like.
Well, exactly. If you don't know what the jigsaw, if you don't know what the picture on the front of the jigsaw box looks like, you're going to struggle. You are going to struggle.
I think that's where we're in. I'd love us to go with what we saw, second half of December, January, early February. I think if that's Ollie's system, and I think it's probably that 4-4-2 diamond, I like that. I do like that. And I do like two strikers. But like I said, who's those two strikers? Why are we buying wingers, potentially, if we're not playing wingers? Where does everybody fit into this jigsaw?
Exactly. There's no point having, we use Wan-Bissaka as an example. As I say, there is no doubt that he is a player of quality, that he has huge potential in the game. But what are his key strengths?
Oh, I can tell you all day long. I love the kid.
No, but if I'm turning it round to you, what would you say? What are you saying if you were going to pick the three elements of his game that do the most to make him as effective as they are? What are they?
I would say with Wan-Bissaka, his positioning is absolutely perfect. His tackling is absolutely perfect. Like, I think he's been, for a winger, for a fullback, dribbled past essentially the least at fullback, which happens quite often. People get past fullbacks. He goes to ground a lot, but he wins the ball a lot when he does that. And people think he's not very involved in attacking play, but I disagree entirely. When you look at Dalot, you look at Trent, you see people that are banging balls in. Well, that's not the right thing to do if your forwards want the ball on the floor. I think Ole wants the ball on the floor. I think he wants us to knock it around in the final third. Wan-Bissaka as a player, as an ex-winger, is one that's got the comfortability with the ball at his feet rather than banging crosses in. I see him fitting perfectly into Ole's system, being able to be involved in link play in the final third, but he's 100 times better than Ashley Young defensively.
Yeah, well, right, that's
Wan-Bissaka's... Don't even think about it.
But that's your view. So immediately,
but I don't know what the jigsaw looks like. I'm guessing.
No. Immediately, I'm thinking. Right. So in your view of United, which is 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 or however you want to view it, he works perfectly.
If you're going with three at the back, though,
it doesn't.
No,
because he can't be one of the three because he's not got the physical power to be able to do it. And
he
can't be a wing back because he's not giving you what you want from a wing back. So that goes back to, if you've decided whatever the manager's decided, they're the pieces that he needs. So it's no point Solskjaer or any other manager saying, do you know what, I'm going to play three at the back, that's my template, I'm going to stick with that, whatever. And then Man United saying, right, well, there you are, there's Wan-Bissaka, we've just spent 60 million, and you're going, well, what's the point of that?
And I think that's why we've not seen Dalot at fullback, but I think if you did play a three at the back, he might be the guy. He might keep a three at the back, he might go with Wan-Bissaka, keep hold of Dalot, and have the flexibility to play both, because I think in a three at the back you can cover up for the defensive frailties that Dalot's got.
Well, it depends who you've got, but again, it depends who you have. If in your in any three at the back,
we're arguably three centre half short of three at the back as well.
but even more than that, and this is another huge bugbear of mine, and this is an English thing really. So you have your three at the back. Your wing backs are going to go forward because that's their job. So you have one guy in the middle, just one, and he drops in when you come under pressure. So your two wide central defenders can go and fill the spaces that your fullbacks would normally occupy, right? When, towards the end of his career, Steven Gerrard dropped back into this, what they call a defensive midfield play. And it was like he is the guy who anchors the midfield. He's your archetypal if you're playing on FIFA CDM. But he's not. Because what was Steven Gerrard? Steven Gerrard was an offensive player who went forward, who happened to be playing in a deep position, right? Because a CDM is a Mascherano. Going back a few years is a Makalele. He's somebody who will sniff danger, who will see
Michael Carrick.
That will see what's and will immediately fill that gap and allow that go across there and allow somebody to go over there, because he will know it's happening. Not wait for the game to happen around him and then react to what's going on. So, but again, you know, I know for a fact City have got Fernandinho, so, you know, there's another one. But I know they're looking for an alternative to Fernandinho because obviously of his age. It's going to cost them 50 million quid. These players, you know, everybody knows that they're good players, which is why they cost a lot of money. So you can't just spend £50 million on a midfield player, because you can pick a £50 million midfield player and it'll be a good player, because he wouldn't be £50 million otherwise. He's got to fit the system. And if he doesn't fit the system, it doesn't matter how good he is, he won't help you.
I think Sanchez is a bit of a victim of that, because I still think there's a hell of a footballer in Sanchez. But I don't see any way that he fits the bill for United in terms of, like, you know, if we're talking jigsaws again, he's an odd shape and we're trying to stuff him in.
But, you know, you just said about Wan-Bissaka. What's Sanchez's attributes? Well, Sanchez kind of drops deep. He nips in, or he kind of creates space from very little. But the United need someone like that in the offensive third, because, you know, they've got runners, they've got Lingard, they've got Rashford. They run beyond the last defender. You know, you're going to look for a little through ball, or, you know, is that the way that it works? Again, you buy a player. I suspect with Sanchez now it's a confidence thing, and it's almost fearful any time he goes on the pitch because things have gone so badly for him. But even if he didn't have all this baggage now, where he's going to play? And I think, you know, I made this point last year. In Lukaku, Sanchez and Pogba, Manchester United have invested around 200 million quid in transfer fees. It's probably costing them around £1 million a week in wages. Forget the other 8 players on the pitch. I would defy anybody to come up with a system that would allow you to get the most out of those 3 players at the same time. And, you know, you have to wonder how you end up in a position like that. And that is the issue.
Horse built by committee.
Well, but, you know, why do you buy Sanchez? Well, you think he's going to add something to your team, but in what way is he going to add something to your team? In what way is he going to do that? And that, you know, I have a lot of sympathy for a lot of people at Manchester United. I have sympathy for Ed Woodward, because I think he's
You're probably
doing
in the minority
his
with
best.
that one.
Well, but I think he's doing his best in a very difficult situation. In terms of, you know, he was taking over the club. He lost the manager that he needed. He was lent heavily on advice for the successor, and that was a disaster. I don't necessarily think the Van Gaal appointment was a bad appointment. I think in that second season, things were actually going quite well.
We did fantastic.
October,
top 4.
But if you look
Stokes
at
and Norwich
October, November, they were doing okay. They were doing well. They were up at the top and challenging. And then they had injuries, and then it all kind of unravelled from there.
I think it'd have gone if Mourinho wasn't available.
Well, maybe not. And then Mourinho came in, and, you know, he got 2 trophies in that first season. So I've got sympathy for Woodward. I've got sympathy for all of the managers to an extent, but I just feel somewhere the ethos that Manchester United always had, and now Manchester City have got and Liverpool have got for building football teams around a system has been lost somewhere. And now it's down to Solskjaer to sort this out. And if he doesn't sort it out, well, it'll be down to the next man. But the warning is that if you rush to judgment on Solskjaer and think, well, he's not a big name manager, he can't do it. Well, who is going to come in and do it? Pochettino's great, but why would Pochettino want to take over this mess?
Well, Pochettino's not doing that much better. With a Spurs team that's a lot better.
Yeah, well, I think you'll find that Solskjaer, from the moment he came in to the end of the season, got more points than Pochettino did. And also, although United were poor at the end of the season, no doubt about it, I did see Tottenham, lose at Burnley, and I did see Tottenham struggle to beat Brighton at home, and I did see Tottenham limp over the line. So I think United have almost got to retreat back to what they were always good at, which is developing young players, thinking about the structure of the football club, thinking about the structure of the team. And that is the only way they'll get back. But anyone who thinks seriously that Manchester United put a team on the park next season and they're going to challenge City and Liverpool, they're deluded.
I think we're a couple of years away. And I just hope it's Solskjaer that's given the opportunity to build a team.
Well,
not just sign a couple of players. I mean, like you're saying, build something in his image.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. But you could see, at the Bayern Munich game last weekend, apart from Beckham, Solskjaer gets the biggest reception of any. He's a hero. If anybody is going to be given a bit of time, he is surely the person. You can see it's not about him, which is the argument for Mourinho. It was always about Mourinho. It was always what was best for Jose. Ole doesn't think like that. It's what's best for Man United. And he makes decisions that he believes to be the best for Manchester United. And I think United have gone so far down the wrong path that you have to stop. You have to reset. You have to go all the way back. And then you have to hope that the finances, that the general support for the club, that, a couple of things work well, that get a couple of signings right, and it can take United into a different era. Because, don't forget, if you go back to Alex Ferguson, when Ronaldo came in on the back of United winning the title in 2003, 2003, that's right, yeah. Rooney came in 2004 after the Invincible season. For 2 years after that, United were really nowhere near because Chelsea ran away with it. So there was 3 years
Roy
there.
Keane in the middle of that.
Exactly.
Give Michael Carrick his shirt and everyone's going, oh my God, what have we become?
But
he was building.
But you are building for something because you can see what's coming.
But he'd have never got 7 years now from 86 to 93.
No, he wouldn't. But I mean,
imagine?
that's we live in a different world, don't we? But you have to give people time.
Yeah. And on that note, I'm going to leave it there. Simon, thank you very much.
No
mate.
worries.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Make sure to go and follow him. Why haven't you been verified anyway? What's that
I don't know. We've tried it. We've tried it at work, but they won't do it. So anyway, I'll carry on unverified.
Go and check him out on Twitter. Definitely worth a follow for United. One of the best journalists talking about Manchester United. And hopefully we'll catch up with you on pre-season somewhere in Shanghai, maybe, or something like that.
I look forward to it. Look forward to it.
Right. Nice one. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Laters.